I'm
BenjaminMarshall.com, the Republican candidate for governor.
Have sexual relations
and
with
I realized that this is something he is
We're not going to be able to solve our problems if we get distracted by sideshows and carnival barkers.
One Republican, one Democrat, and you discuss the issues that matter in today's local, state, national, and global politics. Hosted by Steve Hickson with co-hosts John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey. This is Backfire.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Backfire this beautiful warm December morning in December.
Finally
warm morning.
Feels a little bit like December.
Yeah, I know.
Emphasize little.
A little bit.
We're having what you call a Florida winter right now, aren't we?
It appears that way.
Anyway, welcome Franklin Chansey and John Stanberry to another edition. I'm Steve Hickson, and this is Backfire. I'm not very familiar with what's going on here, but I'll start. The representatives from AT&T Charter Communications are joined in a panel discussion by the heads of Cleveland Utilities. They're talking about a forum message. We want our internet. Tell me what's going on, guys.
Well, the Electric Power Board in Chattanooga provides internet service in addition to the service provided by cable companies and the phone company and that sort of thing. And there's been an effort in a lot of communities to allow utilities to expand into those communities to provide, one, more competition, but two, to provide more internet service in rural parts of counties and communities. And there's a debate going on. The traditional utility companies who have the franchises, Charter, Comcast, those folks are opposed to it, saying that these other companies would effectively be piggybacking on their investment and work that they've done. The other side of that is that internet service and connectivity is a big part of economic development, education, and communities, and not having it in various parts of counties is a significant liability from the standpoint of advancing industry, business, development, education, and so forth. And that's the debate that's going on. And there's some legislation being considered or going to be considered in the General Assembly about whether we're going to allow that or not.
And you know, there's a couple of other parts that get tagged onto this too. I'm not against them allowing them to come in. My problem is when they complain about piggybacking on the backs of these industries, they don't have a problem piggybacking on the back of the taxpayer. And it's not internet access at all. It's the difference between dial-up access and I guess fiber optics and the higher, faster internets. And they come along and they do this same social justice dance where they go, well, everybody now has a right to the internet. It's not that you should have a right to get a service that is offered. It's that the service should be offered no matter what, and the taxpayer ought to pay for it. That's my only problem with it. I don't care what they do in these areas. If they can service an area better, we ought to let them go in there and have the competition. But they want the taxpayer to pay for some of it. And I do have a problem with that because, quite frankly, you could take almost any service that becomes universally popular and claim that it's now a right and the government ought to ensure that everybody has access to it.
I'm not really sure I understand what John's talking about. I mean, the services that are provided in these other communities, they charge for it. It's not like you're getting it for free.
Let me explain what I'm talking about. Locally, the big push is to allow Cleveland Utilities to be a part of this. Well, guess what? That's a function of the government. They can claim that they're separate from the government, but they are actually a government entity. And they would be involved in doing this, so it's taxpayer dollars being expended for really, these people have access to the internet. And if there's enough market down there, they don't need taxpayer money going into it.
Well, okay. As most people know, for using Chattanooga as an example, they've gotten tremendous exposure, apparently a fair amount of new business startups and so forth because of the ability of EPB to provide extended service in these areas and higher quality service. So they actually have more competition going on than they would otherwise. They're charging for it. People still have to pay for it. It's not like it's being given to them. And that's what's being discussed here. If Cleveland Utilities were to get involved in this, EPB, by the way, is also looking expanding into Bradley County if they're allowed to do that.
Which is another quasi-government entity. The problem
It's still
here,
competition.
Look, here's my problem. I'm in between a rock and a hard place. I don't like cable. I think it's a horrible company, but it's a private company, and I don't like government competing with private companies. So Franklin, Cleveland Utilities, EPB, you'd be fine with them going into the legal services business, right?
Well,
With government-backed loans and things like that they can do.
actually, yes, John. We had, for the first half of my career, we had a substantially well-funded legal aid office.
That was a legal aid office to help a limited, disadvantaged
Yes, but over the last 10 years, over the last 10 years, what they've done is cut back on the services that they can provide.
You're kind of slivering us off. You know what I'm asking you? Would you be okay with
John,
them
I'm not
moving
worried
into
about
any
that.
other field of competition?
I don't care.
Well, that's
Doesn't bother me.
socialism, folks. That's how that works. The government gets involved in every aspect of your life that they can. I personally would like to limit that as much as I can. Now, having said that, I think some of the cable people, AT&T, I do think they've been terrible. I think they've been predatory. So there are things that I think the legislature could do, but I personally don't want basic government entities, which is what these utility companies are, to enter into other areas where they compete with private enterprise. I think it's bad for our economy.
I'm going to go way back, and I'm going to talk about when television was free. We had 3, 9, and 12, and then cable started coming around. And Ron Moore, if you're listening, you can call in and straighten me out on this later. But the cable came in and basically pushed some of the television out. It came in and competed with the networks for a while, and then eventually it got to a point where they had to sign up with the cable company to be able to be viewed for some reason. But what I'm getting at, there was some pretty good rights that was negotiated with the city of Cleveland at that time when the cable business
and they
started.
actually haven't kept all those promises up either.
Who's the scorekeeper on that?
Well, that's the thing to keep in mind here. These cable companies have operated under franchise agreements that have been extended by the government. So they're going to say, well, we invested money because we got exclusive rights for a while. All right? But the fact is, there was no competition for a long time in that regard either.
But who's keeping the score on what they're supposed to have done throughout the years? Right now, cable's so expensive. I've talked to people that can't afford to watch television.
Yeah, one of the problems is
they can't afford it.
This is a different issue, but I argued with the city council years ago over an issue and pointed out that they had made an agreement on a certain topic. And a city council member said he wasn't bound by anything previous city councils had done. That's really one of the problems here. The government does and says whatever they need to say in the moment to make the deal. And then you're right. They don't keep up with it. They don't make sure they keep their trust with with the public and force the company to do what they actually agreed to do. So I'm not arguing that there's not a place for government to come in here and see what we can work out. I just fundamentally don't want to see government grow and government entities competing with private businesses anywhere they don't have to.
Yeah. All right. Anybody been down to exit 20?
I have.
It's getting fancy.
It's a big improvement from what it was.
Well, they had the grand opening yesterday. I believe it was yesterday on the new interstate station. Of course, they're still building another exit down from it, and then they've got all that development going in there, and the industrial park, and a bunch of stuff going on.
Let me ask. I've asked, and I've gotten a different answer a time or two. Those hills, as you're going to Chattanooga on the left, those hills, are those going to be completely flattened and leveled off into level building lots?
They're going to be put in the hose that. There's a hill.
That's what I mean.
And then there's
so they're going to grade the hill into the hole.
That's right.
And then compact all of that.
That's right.
And then we'll have building sites.
That's right. It'll be developed.
That's a lot of work.
And then on down from that is in the industrial park.
Well, what is all that? Is that not the industrial
No,
park?
that's not the industrial park. That is retail development.
That's private development.
Now, but is the government funding that grading and filling and compacting?
No.
So that's private.
Private developers paying for that.
Okay, and then the industrial park is on
Back
below
behind it there.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm so happy that is open now. That's a big deal. Maybe the traffic will start backing up too.
Well, we're a little
Yeah,
late because I heard we would have got the Cabela's, and then I heard we actually looked at the Bass Pro, and they're both slated.
Yeah. Anyway.
Although I will say this, I went down and got in line Saturday morning early to get my free Cabela's gift, which they gave. You know, they came down the line, and I was one of the first 250, and they kept their word and gave a gift.
Where was this?
Cabela's, their Black Friday, the first 650 got a gift. You know, it wasn't a discount. You got a gift, and they gave away guns and binoculars and rangefinders. Now, I got a $10 gift certificate, which is what I saw most people got. But it's $10. But anyway, my point was, standing in line, we were just kind of talking about the Bass Pro shop going in with one of the other guys, and he said, hey, did you hear Bass Pro is in talks to buy Cabela's? And it just strikes me, you got two huge operations and buildings that will be within, half a mile of each other right there?
Well, the Cabela's is actually, although it has recently opened, it's not an old store, is under consideration for closure by the company.
Really?
Because of a restructuring they're doing nationwide.
Is it not profitable, or?
Well, it's only been open for a brief period of time, and they've invested money in it, but they're looking at closing a number of their
No,
stores.
you're talking about that store?
Yeah, well, according to the article in the paper, that's one of the ones that's on the list being considered for closing. So,
well, it's awful close. You know, they've got one in Ackworth in Georgia, and people will drive, you know, they're big stores, and they have unique items, and they have pretty good pricing. So you're going to drive. It's not, for me, when Gander Mountain first opened in Knoxville, it wasn't a big deal to say I'm going to drive to Knoxville to that store. So Ackworth is really not a very long drive down there from this one.
Oh, yeah. That's called a big box destination.
So.
Janice Castile is retiring. May, I think, is the one I read.
looks like that she's announced that, and apparently announced it several months ago to the various members of the city council.
42 years service. I like Janice. She's a sweet girl.
Janice isn't old enough to have served 42 years.
That says 42 years. I agree with you.
It would be interesting to know how many, if any, city employees have ever served longer than 42 years.
That's
That is a
probably
long
true.
time.
All right. That's
I think
fine.
she has essentially grown up there.
And has been a dedicated, hardworking, honest worker, and tried to do everything she could do to do a good job.
She has. Lee University has a lot to celebrate. Jordan Smith won last night.
Yeah, pretty big deal.
Huge deal. $100,000, a new car, a recording contract.
Well, pretty big deal for Jordan Smith, but I meant pretty big deal for Lee University. They have
yes.
gotten a ton of publicity over this, and the article that was in the paper a day or two ago about how they've been utilizing all the success of their students in marketing and recruiting campaigns was really fascinating. So that's a big deal.
You know, Lee is just it's such a blessing for Cleveland, Tennessee. I told Paul Kahn the other day, I think Lee University is getting to a point now where it is Cleveland. I mean, it has changed Cleveland, Tennessee, to a point that Lee University is almost responsible for the way Cleveland is turning out. I mean, it's amazing what they've done over
Cleveland and Lee have both grown dramatically over the last 20 years.
Well, you know, the music and theater department down there, drama department, has been known across the country for years anyway, but starting, like Franklin said, several years ago with the Sing Off and the Voices of Lee, which is a wonderful group. This is just a further achievement that'll bring them even more acclaim.
They've had 3 make the televised Hollywood rounds of the American Idol. They had the runner-up last year. They had this on The Voice. You know, they had that acapella competition before, and not putting the political spin on it, but being chosen to sing at a presidential inaugural.
That's true.
It's a huge deal. That's a real honor, and it's a testament to how well they're doing over there. So,
you know,
congratulations to them.
Lee. Dr. Kahn has been, and I think this is appropriate for an institution like that. He was good friends, well connected with Senator Sasser when he was here, and Senator Sasser was, I think, good to the university, and they cooperated anytime he needed to have an event. They've been wonderful friends with Senator Alexander and Senator Corker, and Alexander has come and used the university for different events. So I think they've been very smart about, and very a lot of integrity about the way they've kind of managed their personal image in the community.
Hard to find much fault with the way Lee has developed and grown over the years.
It's amazing, really. I know a lot of people used to complain about Lee taking up space. They were taking land off the tax register. Oh, that was a big deal for many, many years. They complained about it every time Lee was purchasing
Lee
property.
has clearly improved property values around it.
Oh, and spending and the kids that are here, and
Sure.
It's amazing how well Lee's done.
Well, I mean, one of the
Thank you, Paul Kahn.
I agree. One of the nicest things is, they would get criticized a lot about different houses. Most of the houses were small. They were in pretty bad shape back there, and it was a tough neighborhood. And all of that is, when you drive through there, it's just an impressive improvement to the view. Up on Ocoee Street, one of the oldest houses in town, they've maintained. That's their admissions office, beautiful Victorian house right there at the monument. And they've done a wonderful job maintaining that.
Email closes all the L.A. schools. What do you think about that? Do you think
tough position to be in when you have to make the call?
I think it's crappy for people to second guess and to compare New York to Los Angeles. I wouldn't criticize New York, and I wouldn't criticize Los Angeles.
I absolutely agree with that.
Now, I will say this, the scary thing for me is, this is an opinion. Catherine Herridge, who's national security reporter on Fox, said that what some people were concerned was that this was not just a hoax, that it was in fact, and I forget there's an actual term they used for it, but basically it was a test case, that the terrorists put it out there to see how the responses were. And in a way, it's probably a good response, because you had one went one way and one went the other way.
I hope that they're able to track down
who did it. Now, they do think, I did hear some interesting discussion, they think it probably is someone, if not in America, certainly someone that's familiar with it, because the Los Angeles, when it was mentioned, it was listed as the Unified Los Angeles School District. That's a term that an American citizen would know.
I wouldn't have known, so
Right. But a foreigner would have just said Los Angeles schools. And so.
Yeah, they don't know whether it was city or county.
Yeah.
That's a very technical term that someone familiar with California and Los Angeles would have had to say. So, and again, that tells you the complexity that the federal officials are going to have to look at this to figure out who did do it.
Hillary Clinton comes out and unveils a plan to stop the spread of ISIS. Have you heard anything about her plan?
She has embraced the no-fly zone concept.
Basically, her plan is, I'm going to do it. There you go. I'm going to do it. Take my word for it. I'm going to do it. No details.
Well, she urged Silicon Valley to take an active role in dismantling the terrorist network of communications operations. That's kind of what Trump said last night in his speech, but he did seem to adopt that.
Actually, I thought Fiorina did the best job in detailing that out. She said, look, nobody's asked them. She said when 2001 hit, they did ask her to help with that, and she went, she asked, and they helped.
Well, that's a good segue. What was everybody's take on the debate last night?
I thought it was a good debate. I thought, I don't think there was a clear winner. There's some people that did rather well. I think Christie did well with his.
I actually thought it was Bush's best debate performance. I don't know that it changes the needle much, but I thought it was his best performance.
I think Bush just gets weaker every time.
No, last night he did good, and to be honest, his confrontation with Trump was, I was listening to it coming in this morning, it was the highest on social media. That was the highest moment, and it was his smack back at Trump that was the highest mark. Now, does it change anything? Probably not.
We got to give kudos to Steve for his accurate prognostication. We asked the question last week, did Trump's numbers go up or down? They went up in the polls, as you predicted.
That's right.
So
if you remember, I predicted Trump a long time ago, too.
Well, in regards to that, that was, for people who didn't hear last week, it was in reference to the Muslim comments. Now, Trump's not my first choice, and I do think that he says...
Who is your first choice?
Well, I'm running as a delegate for Fiorina.
Okay. I just want to clarify that.
Well, obviously, I signed up to be a delegate for her. I committed to her. I will support her. Now, I'm okay with any of them, even Trump. He's not my first choice. But what I was going to say is, I do think, and I made the defense of some of his statements that it was a negotiating type tactic. You ask for something way beyond what you think you're going to get, and by the time you negotiate it out, you end up with probably what you wanted in the first place. The problem is, as president, you have to be careful how you use words. This president has been loose with his words.
Well, wait a minute. Has he been any looser than Obama?
No, I just said that, but I don't like Obama. So that's not a good comparison,
well, I think,
Steve.
to me, his loose words are tighter than they was tightening up how loose Obama made it.
Let me get to what I was going to say, because I think you'll like this.
All right.
I think when he said Muslim, first off, Muslim is not a race, and that bothers me. They'll say, oh, this is racist. There are white Muslims, there are Arab Muslims, there are black Muslims, there are Asian Muslims. Islam is not a race, so it's not racist what he said. But the Pew Research Center did some polling, and they released this in 2013. Now, this is the United States Muslim community. 8% of U.S. Muslims say suicide bombing and violence against civilian targets, are often or sometimes justified. Now, those aren't Muslims in Iraq or Muslims in Syria. Those are United States Muslims. So I do think some of Trump's bluster brings up a bigger issue that we do need to talk about. And the Muslim community, they need to look at this idea of 8% of United States Muslims feel that suicide bombing and violence against civilians is justified. They need to deal with that. They need to be forthcoming about it. And we need to discuss that. And before anybody says, well, 8%, there's 2.75 million Muslims in the United States. 8% is 220,000 people. That ought to be a sobering thought.
It may be, but that also requires emphasis on the fact that 92% apparently don't agree with that.
Franklin, I agree, but how much of your family's security are you willing to risk for that?
Well, I don't know how you are able to make those distinctions, though.
Well, my point, I didn't say, I gave no specific policy. What I said was, it requires a discussion.
Well,
and let me make another point, Franklin. The progressives are all the time talking about defending the president in not saying violent Islamic extremists. Guess what protects good, decent, loyal American Muslims? Separating them from the violent Islamic extremists. Not calling it is really what puts the entire Muslim community in the crosshairs. If he would actually separate the violent extremists out, then you separate them from the rest of Islam, the 92%, as you pointed out, that is peaceful and doesn't accept, oh, by the way, there were 5% more that said sometimes violence is justified. So we're actually at about 88%.
What did you think about the debate last night, John?
You know, I thought Christie did come off. I think on national security issues, Christie comes off good. He's actually running pretty strong in New Hampshire. I don't think, big picture, that it changes it a whole lot. I think Cruz and Rubio were the main draw there. Trump kind of faded back a little bit and let it go. I never think Trump does well in these. I think that his popularity in the polls afterwards is more a phenomenon of an idea rather than him. They like the idea of somebody who's blustery and upfront and blatant in their statements. But as far as his personal performance, he got some facts wrong. I never find him to be impressive in the debates.
Your opinion, Franklin?
Well, I share some of John's conclusions in that I'm always left scratching my head a little bit about what Trump's appeal is. But that being said, you're going to see two sets of poll numbers over the next day or two. One of them's already out, and that was Republican insiders who were polled, and their views probably track what John's was. That Rubio had a really good night. I thought Cruz had the better night. Well, in this poll,
They don't like Cruz.
40% liked Rubio in it.
I agree.
They thought Christie had a good night. They thought Jeb Bush had a better night.
And I think Fiorina always comes off as incredibly informed and detailed.
But I suspect
she is. I agree with you about her. She's very informed and gives a lot of detail about it. But for some reason, she just can't get started.
Well, it could be partly that she's a woman.
Well, I mean, I don't think that has anything to do with anything anymore.
Yeah.
You know, she has
If it
probably
did, how'd Hillary get where she
has probably put herself onto
because
the
she was a wife of a politician.
Okay.
She has probably put herself onto the short list of potential vice presidential candidates. Whether she would get it or not, I don't know, but I think she's going to get some discussion at least.
Well,
depending on who the nominee is, of course.
Spot, to be honest, a lot of times is traditionally been viewed somewhat as a hatchet man. Well, who can hit a woman candidate better, a man or a woman? So I think she's way up the VP spot if she doesn't win.
I want to say that I think anybody on that stage last night would be better than what we've got.
Well, and what you saw, too, if you'll think about it, you saw Christie and you saw Fiorina both try to hearken back to that several times. Look, we don't need to be fighting among ourselves. You know, the target here is Hillary.
Well, there's lots more of interfighting still going to happen the next month, for sure.
Well, that's because we have plenty of qualified people, unlike the old, aged-out people in your party.
Respectfully...
You're right, because you know what? Bernie Sanders has to catch his breath between every couple of sentences.
Most people, or at least many people, in the Republican Party, I'm talking about Republican commentators I've seen, have now come forward and said that the number of people in the primaries is a sign of weakness at this point, because nobody in the party views themselves as having a really strong candidate. And that has kept all these other people in the race, because they've all believed, up until this point at least, that Donald Trump was going to.
So in other words, folks, when the Republican Party comes forward with the widest, most experienced, most diverse mix, the mainstream media decides that instead of a strength, that's now become a weakness.
No, we're not talking necessarily about qualifications. We're
Well,
talking about the way they're
Hillary and Bernie.
perceived in the party.
They have two elderly white people. We have two Hispanics. We have a black man. We have a woman.
Well,
we have governors. We have senators. We have executives.
I will say it is quite refreshing to see the Republican Party embrace diversity. I'm impressed by that.
Why is the Democrats not
I
going
mean, embrace diversity. Every achievement of every racial minority in America has come at the hands of Republicans, not Democrats.
That's an astounding suggestion.
What is? The first black congressman, the first black senator, the first governor, the first Indian American governor, the first Indian American woman governor, the first Vietnamese congressman. How many more do you want me to name off for you, Franklin?
Keep going, John. Keep going.
Well, the first, Franklin, we have all of the firsts. The Democrats, Al Gore Sr. voted against the civil rights movement in Tennessee.
Al Gore Sr. is the person who refused to sign the Southern Manifesto, John.
Franklin, he voted against it. The Republicans passed that. The Democrats opposed that uniformly. Matter of fact, Martin Luther King was a registered Republican.
Why are there so few
Democrats running
members in the Republican Party then? If you're such progressive.
Because you all, just like Lyndon Johnson said on the secret recorded tapes, that if we can get them hooked on government, we'll have them voting Democrat for the next 100 years.
You mean when he said that he just gave the South to the Republican Party? When he passed the civil rights
on the secret recorded tapes, he said, if we can get my great society passed and get them hooked on government, and he used the N-word in describing who he was talking about, we'll have them voting Democrat for the next 200 years.
Mm-hmm. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we've got a lot to cover. The Democrat National Committee's needing to borrow some money for their convention. My goodness, let's talk about it. We'll be back.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Check check into checking to cash.
Need a little extra cash right away? Who doesn't? Turn your car into cash at Check into Cash.
Get up to $4,000 with your car title only from Check into Cash. You get more cash with a Check into Cash title line of credit.
Turn your car into cash today at Check into Cash. Visit checkintocash.com for the store near you.
$4,000 title line of credit maximum based on value of vehicle and ability to repay. Subject to credit approval. See store for details.
Did you know that U.S. Money Shops cashes all checks, even the ones most check cashers reject? Tax refund checks, government checks, payroll checks, and many more. And when you cash a check with U.S. Money Shops, we'll give you 10% off your next purchase. At U.S. Money Shops, we have everything you need at a fraction of regular retail. So stop by one of our 11 locations or visit us online at usmoneyshops.com.
Buy or sell or buy today, the better way at U.S. Money Shops.
Some restrictions may apply. See store for details.
Hey Whoopsters, this is Johnny B. Jonesy, and I'm located at the Check into Cash off Treasury Drive. That's next to the new Walmart, right between Cato's and the Tandy Company. Come visit me if you're in a financial pinch. We offer products all the way up to $425 on our payday advances, $2,500 on our title loans, and $4,000 on our line of credit. That offers the lowest rate guarantee, and we buy out titles anywhere, anytime. And that is 2314 Treasury Drive, Cleveland, Tennessee. And that number, 423-479-2166. New customers, mention Whoop FM and get cash back on your first loan. That's Check into Cash. Ka-ching!
If you need a little green, Lending Frog is making deals. He'll lend you cash on any kind of wheels. Borrow just a little, or you can borrow big. Lending Frog is a new financial gig. It's hip to hop into cash. LendingFrog.com is making a splash. Dig it, dig it. Dig it, dig it.
At Buy Here, Pay Here USA, we pay the most because we buy the best. And we make selling your car to us as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Bring your car, truck, or SUV to one of our stores. 2. We'll give you a free appraisal with no obligation. 3. Sell us your car. It's that easy. At Buy Here, Pay Here USA, we buy the best, we sell the best, and we pay the most. Visit us in Cleveland, Dayton, or Chattanooga, or go to buyheresellhere.com. That's buyheresellhere.com. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
Tired of standing in line to cash your paycheck? Go to usmoneycard.com. Company doesn't provide direct deposit? Visit usmoneycard.com. The smart and safe alternative to carrying cash. We'll provide direct deposit for your prepaid debit card, or you can deposit cash anytime. Your US Money Card is reloadable and can be used wherever MasterCard is accepted. You never have to worry about overdraft fees. Spend what you deposit. So log on, load up, and love your US Money Card, the safe and smart way to spend. Visit usmoneycard.com for complete details.
No dealers allowed.
Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, offering the best with over 70 styles of recliners, sofas, electronic lift chairs, full living room packages. Call Mike now at 961-7239 because Jackson Catnapper now offers sales to the public
every Saturday. That's right, every Saturday.
From 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. Or call Mike at 961-7239. Or go see him
every Saturday
at 1911 King Edward Avenue, just across from the main plant. Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933. 961-7239.
No dealers allowed.
This is Teresa Gilbert from the Village Bake Shop in Cleveland, Tennessee. Do you have a birthday, wedding, or anniversary coming up and want that perfect cake? Need some donuts to sweeten up your co-workers? Want to surprise your sweet thing with a bag of cookies? Then come on over to the Village Bake Shop. Family operated since 1961. The Village Bake Shop is your first and last stop for fresh baked goods that will feed your sweet tooth. The Village Bake Shop located at the Village Green Town Center. The phone number here is 423-476-5179. See you soon.
This is Drew at the Bald Headed Bistro. Come down and get your gift cards for all of your family and friends this holiday season. From now until December 27th, when you buy a $100 gift card, we're going to give you a $25 gift card for free. Come get yours today.
Hello, my name is Andy Figglestaller with Ed Jacobs & Associates. We are an employee benefit and insurance broker in business for the past 20 years. The new healthcare law, also known as Obamacare, has finally arrived. The law is complex and the choices are confusing. You have questions, we have the answers. It is our passion to find cost-effective solutions for every client. The solutions will be different for every person or business. Let our knowledge, experience, and passion go to work for you. Contact us today and let us assist you through this process. Our phone number is 423-473-0202, or you can find us on the web at edjacobs.com.
Train Endurance Engineers are an elite group of extremely devoted individuals who stop at nothing to push our heating and cooling units to the brink. That way, when they pick up the pieces, they'll know exactly how to make the train we install in your home even more reliable. Right now, their target is a train AC unit.
Test to control. Fire up the pitching machine.
Their methods may seem unconventional,
Okay, cue the jackhammers.
but it's because of their tireless efforts that it's hard to stop a train.
When you want an unconventionally efficient heating and air unit that keeps your home right in the comfort zone day in and day out, nothing will do but a Train. To get the best Train service, call your local Train comfort specialist. Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. Keeping you comfortable is Mechanical Systems' only business, and they've been providing high-quality service and installations for more than 30 years. Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. That's 336-5739.
It's hard to stop a train. Really hard.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
There's a ton of Republicans who aren't going to come out and vote at
I
all
disagree with
if Trump's a nominee.
Oh, I
Period.
believe it will. I disagree. I think. Are we on the air?
Are we on the air? Great. Daniel trying to be secretive over here. Oh, we got a call. Let's take a call. Go ahead, caller. You're live. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. You're live.
Hey, Steve.
Hey.
If I may touch on what you're talking about real fast, about who I think is going to be the president and who I think is going to be nominated.
Okay, go ahead.
I hate to say this about John's candidate. I don't think she's got a chance. At least that's my opinion. And
I shouldn't say this since I'm, running. I don't disagree. I think she's certainly long shot. I did two things. Well, one, I think she's eminently qualified and I think would make an excellent president. But second, I thought it was important that the party support a strong, talented woman.
Okay. Well, whoever wins between the Republican Party that's nominated for president, I think they're going to have an uphill battle because I think it'll be running against Hillary Clinton, and everybody I talk to says it's going to be Hillary Clinton's going to be the next president.
Now, there's only 5 or 6 in this town that believes that besides you.
Well,
is that everybody you know?
That's the ones I've been talking to.
The Democrats?
Yeah.
Are you a Democrat?
No.
You're not?
No, I'm not.
What would make you think Hillary's going to win then?
Well, have you seen the people that's on the Democratic Party that she's run against? One of them's old. One of them looks like he's 80 years old.
He is 80 years old.
Well, I mean, that's just for, they got to run her against a Republican.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you who my Republican Party has been. It's been Donald Trump, but I think he's hurting himself. I don't think he's going to make it.
You don't, huh? Who do you think's going to who do you think's going to make it on the Republican side?
Well, I'm kind of leaning towards Christie, but I was kind of hoping Jeb Bush would make it, but I'll be honest with you, it's going to be hard to say right now, but I hope it's between Jeb Bush and Christie.
Well, I think you're way down the pack.
Well, whoever it is, like I said,
would you vote for Trump if he runs?
Sure.
Okay. That's all I need to know.
All right, guys, you guys have a Merry Christmas.
You too.
All right.
I actually think you've got a better shot at looking at either Cruz or Rubio. Now, Franklin, is right. If Iowa goes to Trump, it just continues on that momentum. But there's two things going on, though. the pollsters can't figure out why Trump says these things and it doesn't hurt his popularity. But by the same token, that can happen in the reverse. There's a lot of cases. Kentucky, for example, the governor's race just a month or so ago, the Democrat the week before the election was up by 5 points. When the election hit, the Republican won by 8 points. I think there could be, and this is a complete guess, but I think there could be a lot of people that when they're asked, they go, yeah, I'm going to vote for Trump. He's funny. He's direct. I like that he said this. But when they walk in that booth and they have to throw the lever, they throw it for somebody else.
Well, it's interesting. I watched a focus group of Iowa Republicans the other night. This was conducted by Frank Luntz, who's frequently on Fox News. And they were all very pro-Trump.
Yeah.
Now,
I
Trump,
thought this morning, the veterans are all behind Trump. They think his message. I was watching television early this morning.
I probably need to turn loose of this, but like when you say what you just said, his message, he doesn't have a message. The people that are for Trump are for an idea, and I don't disagree. He is selling
They're tired of politicians. Let me clarify. They're tired of Republican and Democrat politicians.
But my problem with him is I actually care about the issues, and I watch him flip-flop on all these issues. So for me, he looks like a horrible politician.
Well, you know what? For me, he looks great because a man that's that successful, John, can do something to help this country right
let
now.
me hit back a little bit, and I'm not, like I said, I'll support him fine, but I would love for someone to ask him something because I'm a small business person, and I've been on the losing end of bankruptcy filings. Mm-hmm. So my question to him is, and I will be honest, I don't like his arrogance. I don't like when he talks about how much money he's worth. Personally, I find that a bad trait in any individual.
Well,
but what gets me is, hey, Donald, Joe out here went bankrupt because of your bankruptcy.
Would you rather talk about Hillary's?
No, I think she's horrible. I said that.
$3 billion?
I said that. But what I was getting at is I think the public is reacting more to his image, and he does. He is presenting an image of strength, an image of confidence, and you do infer from that. You infer a confident, strong person will take decisive, strong action.
And that's his image up, though, John.
I agree.
He backs his image up.
Well, my point is in the debates and all, there's not a lot of fact there. But people, Reagan, I think people responded more to Reagan's confidence and Reagan's directness than they did his actual issues. I happen to like all of his issues. So I think Trump's strength is that people react to the image.
Well, the image has been proven to be successful.
I agree.
So I'm responding in a successful way for Trump.
I agree.
I think he can change things quicker than anyone. Let's talk about the Democratic National Committee. The DNC is facing tough financial circumstances. The latest report shows it is just $4.7 million in cash on hand as of October 31st, less than the $6.9 million in debts the committee reported. Anyway, the Democratic National Committee has just announced a proposal to have taxpayers come up with $15 to $20 million they still need to hold next summer's nominating convention.
Well, now there's a little bit more to this.
All right, go ahead.
Less than a year ago, both the Republican National Committee and the Democratic National Committee, Congressman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who's the right hand of the president and is, the chairman of the DNC, agreed not to take any money, that they would raise all of their own money.
That's right.
That's less than a year ago. This legislation was passed and signed. Less than a year later, the Republicans are raising their money and saying, we're going to pay for our convention. The Democrats have now decided that they want taxpayers to foot the bill.
What's your opinion, Franklin?
Multiple things. Number one, I'm not sure about the agreement that he announced, but what has happened in the past, and let me finish because you're going to think I'm defending them and I'm not. In the past, taxpayers actually have been footing the cost for both conventions. And they changed that in the last budget agreement last year. Okay, hold on. Let me finish. What did I just say?
All right.
Okay. But I do think that in this particular case that they've done a poor job, and so they're just going to have to suck it up and deal with it.
And keep in mind, the taxpayers...
So I don't think that they should have the taxpayers.
Now, taxpayers still funding. The taxpayer, and I don't think this is inappropriate, we fund a lot of the security measures.
That's a different thing.
Right. So we
have a national interest in that.
We are still funding the security, and we actually help some of the cities because these events are huge economic booms to the cities that get them, but not all the cities are able to do it completely.
But they also have tremendous costs that the cities
they
have
benefit.
to incur.
So we are still helping
infrastructure and so forth.
any area where we see that it's either safety and security or it's actually the general economic benefit. They're getting some help.
So
but
I'm
it's
in
just the specific.
I'm in agreement. I don't like that proposal, and I don't support it.
There you go.
Good. Hey, that's good, Frank. I'm proud of you.
But let me make the distinction. Republicans aren't asking for the help from the government.
Why would the Democrats?
Because they're in a bind.
I mean, they put themselves in a bind because they spent too much money.
They put themselves in a bind because their president has destroyed the structure of the party. Every chance he had where he had to make a decision, do I build myself up or do I build the party up, he's destroyed the party.
Well, interestingly enough, giving to the two parties, including the Republican Party, is actually down pretty significantly. And the reason for that is because
these 501c3s.
The 501c3s, people are giving the money to those instead of to the parties the way they used to.
But, hey, Tom Steyer will write a $20 million check to the DNC tomorrow to cover it if he had to. The billionaire mogul.
Let's be honest. We had the debate last night in Las Vegas for one reason.
Gambling?
No, Sheldon Adelson. It was a bones to him for all of his support. I'm not knocking him for that. Yeah. I'm just saying that's, I've said 1,000 times in here, there's too much money in the process right now. I think it's bad for us.
What's going on with Bergdahl?
The Army Commission has recommended going forward with a general court-martial.
And he's facing life in prison, and the White House won't comment.
Well, they're not supposed to comment on that.
Well, they didn't have a problem having a Rose Garden ceremony, calling him effectively a hero with his parents standing beside the president, welcoming him back.
I think the message there is,
the message
if
there
you
was,
were in the service, we're going to go get you.
The message there to the men who risked their life, I think 6 of whom or 5 of whom died looking for him, was, I'm more interested in saving a deserter than I am in honoring your service.
John McCain, Bergdahl's lawyer is accusing Trump of lashing out and interfering with the trial. Trump made some comments that he thought Bergdahl was a traitor, a no-good traitor, and should have been executed.
He is.
Okay.
And he could have faced execution.
That's right. And Trump also pledged to review the case if Bergdahl is not appropriately punished if he's elected. Now then, come on down here. Senator John McCain, Republican, also the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, for saying his committee would investigate and hold a hearing if it disagrees with the outcome of the case. In other words, they were trying to get Bergdahl about a year, and now it looks like they're going to try to do a little more than that.
Well, they did the investigation, and the Army wouldn't release it. They held the investigation for over a year, and then they get this one, I don't know if he's a judge, I'm not exactly sure how that works, but they get this one officer, probably from what we've read, under pressure from the administration, to recommend that he time served. And fortunately, you have a military judge who bucked the pressure from the administration, said, no, we're going to send him to trial, and we're going to send him to trial with some real consequences, which is life in prison.
That sounds great. Let's take a call. Caller, go ahead. You're live. Hello, caller. You're there.
Steve?
Yes, sir.
I've got one comment to make about this Bergdahl business, and I've called in before when you guys were discussing this man.
Uh-huh.
What would have happened to him if he had been in the Vietnam era? He would have lost his life because somebody would have killed him.
That shot him right there on the spot.
And, the thing about it is, why waste the taxpayers' money defending this guy in any capacity? I mean, the president himself stood there in the Rose Garden and patted this guy on the back and shook his hand. He's as guilty of treason as Bergdahl is.
Well, this goes a long way, all these trials and so forth, but you know, he has to go through a trial before they can do it.
The confidence level in the military is at one of the lowest ebbs it's been in decades.
That's right. And I think the outcome of this trial is going to be it's going to send a message back to the military and to America.
I tell you what, the veterans of America need to get behind somebody. They need to stand up. They need to stand up. We hadn't got anybody in Washington that's got any gumption or gonads to get behind. But the veterans in the United States of America ought to protest this thing to the very end. The taxpayers having to support a trial for this guy. They need to execute him, and if they need somebody to pull the trigger, I'm the man.
Now, you know the American way is to have a trial.
Well,
and then appeal it, and then have another trial. Then appeal it, then have another trial. Then appeal it, and have another trial.
He got 5 people killed. That's enough right there that he ought to be executed for first-degree murder.
Well, now they're saying that you can't prove that he got anybody killed.
Well, everybody knows he did. Everybody knows he's a deserter, and he needs to be put to death.
Thanks for calling.
Bye.
See you. You know, what do you think the outcome of Murdaugh is going to be in this trial?
Well, the jury will be made up of fellow soldiers, so I have no reason to not trust their judgment.
I think they'll convict him.
What do you think, life?
Well, that's all that's available. The judge in putting him before didn't allow, I don't know what the charge is, but he didn't put the charge forward that would have carried execution. So life in prison is the top end of this.
It's been a long time since someone's been convicted.
No one's been executed in the United States military since World War II.
Mm-hmm.
But now keep in mind, there'll be a huge...
Only one person during World War II.
There'll be a huge push from the progressives on the left and from the mainstream media. The Rosenbergs, for example, that got drug out decades and decades that they were innocent, they were innocent, they were innocent. Then finally the files get declassified and they weren't innocent. They were completely guilty all along.
Who's the Rosenbergs now?
They were convicted and executed for espionage.
Okay. Obamacare, holiday season deadline.
I have got to go.
Oh.
I wanted to get into us not looking at social media on terrorists because we don't want to violate their civil rights.
Oh, I know.
There wouldn't be much of a debate there. I think that that was a mistake.
That's a policy that your president expressly put in place.
No, that's not what they said.
That's what
they said. That was a policy that the head of that organization put down, but there's been no statement.
Once again. I'm sorry. The president.
Hold on, John. I don't have any trouble with this concept. If your argument is simply the buck stops here with the president no matter what happens, then I'll accept that argument.
All right.
Okay? But don't say the president did it personally if you don't have any evidence.
Well, do you think
you don't.
You think he influenced that decision?
Let me throw one.
I wouldn't think so.
Let
That's
me throw
an
one
awfully
other quick thing out
but John and I are in agreement on the policy.
But here's the only problem, frankly. You say if you don't have any evidence. The guy at the State Department in charge of Hillary's IT stuff, the State Department can't find his emails now. So it's hard to have evidence when the administration systematically destroys it.
I think Franklin got out of here just in time. Franklin has left the building. He didn't want to talk about Obamacare, the cost going up.
And by the way, folks, France has just arrested 2 Syrian refugees for ISIS connections, and they had traces of explosive in the car. The problem with the traces is they don't know where the explosives actually were put.
Yeah.
So now you have 2 Syrian refugees in France who turned out to be ISIS terrorists.
And they've raided the mosque.
They raided a mosque and brought back a huge stash of AK-47s and explosives. And by the way, since all of this came, the Paris attack started, we've brought in, I think, 237 Syrian refugees, all of which were Muslim except one Christian out of 237.
We got another call. Let's go ahead and take it. Go ahead, caller. You're live. They're cut off. Call us again. Obamacare, they've extended the deadline 2 days. Wonder why?
Well, because it's collapsing as they speak, and they're panicked to try and do everything they can do to save it. It is collapsing literally as you look at it. It's collapsing.
I saw something in Chattanooga Times the other day. I didn't have time to read the paper, but more people are now insured in Tennessee than ever's been.
On the government rolls?
Yeah.
The taxpayers paying for all that.
But the headline, the way it's put.
Of course. They put the headline to sound good, and then when you read down in there, you go, crap, I'm paying for this.
I know. You look at it and say, oh, well, good, everybody's insured. But nobody knows or thinks about how it was paid for. What kind of deal? Ryan tells the members that the spending deal is reached. The budget was put together. You know anything about the budget? What's going on?
I haven't had a chance to look at it a lot. You know, I think Paul Ryan probably feels that a shutdown, the last shutdown, the Democrats did that. The president did that. Who got the blame? The Republicans. The mainstream media makes it very difficult for real facts to get out, and so you're always playing against, I know what this is, but how's it going to actually be told to the public? And so I think Ryan felt like a shutdown was going to be a disaster for the party, and so he tried to avoid the shutdown.
Well, good. So at least they've agreed and there won't be a shutdown now.
That's the way it looks.
We won't have people leaving one state and going to another or any of that.
That's the way it looks.
We never had that happen but one time, have we? Where they left their states and went to other states. The social media.
Yep.
Tell me what's going on with the social media. They're wanting to they were wanting to kumbaya the social media. In other words, they never looked at social media.
No, they the two things in the press conference the other day. The State Department spokesman said it's just simply may not be necessary to review social media of all visa applicants, and apparently it was actually a position that came down from the administration that the Civil Rights Department of the Department of Homeland Security said that they thought, now this is the worst part. Let's see if I can find it. The primary concern, now this is an actual statement from them. The primary concern was that it would be viewed negatively if it was disclosed publicly, and there were concerns that it would be embarrassing. So guess what, folks? If you're one of the relatives of the 14 people that were gunned down in San Bernardino, feel good that the Department of Homeland Security under President Obama was concerned about their public image and the negative image that looking at her Facebook account would have given. Now, keep in mind, her Facebook account announced that she was sympathetic with ISIS, that she hated America, that she wanted to kill people. But we didn't look at that because we thought it might be embarrassing if it came out that we looked at that. By the way, those are public. You know, that's not like snooping around. Facebook is a public posting.
Mm-hmm.
What moron wouldn't think that was appropriate to look at? Colleges look at it. High schools look at it. Businesses look at it. Everybody looks at Facebook, but apparently not the Department of Homeland Security.
It wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be socially acceptable. Is that basically the way
they said that it would be embarrassing? They literally said it would be embarrassing. Oh, and by the way, there's a whistleblower that said he had a program in place that was actually looking at a terrorist organization that she was a member of, and the State Department, same group, the Civil Rights and Civil Liberties Office, shut it down because they said they thought it was profiling Islamic groups. Now, this group that she was a member of is an offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood. Keep in mind, the Muslim Brotherhood was a Nazi-supporting group founded to help Hitler and is now tied to the government in Iran. It's tied to Hezbollah. It's tied to Hamas. It's tied to every terrorist group in the world. By the way, the White House has actually invited members of the Muslim Brotherhood to the White House, but we didn't look at that because they thought it would be profiling.
John, you and I know Franklin's gone, so he can't argue this. Maybe we can have a conversation about it. But, no matter what Franklin says, our president has been very, very Muslim thinking, I think. I mean, he was raised as a Muslim, right?
Well, just so you understand, the whistleblower that talked about his investigation that probably would have turned up these links, after he became a whistleblower, he was then, they investigated him. They found no wrongdoing, but then a few months later, he had his security clearance revoked as well as his access to work on databases. So that was the Obama administration's response to his whistleblowing, was to punish him.
All right, next week, we're going to have another show. It'll be the show between Christmas and New Year's, and then we're going to take off. Let's see. We're going to take off the next week, which would be the day before New Year's. Am I right?
Right.
So, next week, we will have a show. Now then, I think we're going to try to come up with a little special segment called Lies of the Year. John, you think you can come up with any lies?
I think we can find a bunch.
All right, I'm going to try.
No, wait a minute. You don't want me to limit that just to Hillary Clinton?
No.
Well, actually, I couldn't do that. It'd take a week or two to have that show.
Franklin, now we did talk about this with Franklin before he left, so he is aware of it. That next week's show would be Lies of the Year is what we're going to title it. So
let me give you a little preview, folks. You know, you all have heard Franklin and you've heard Hillary talk about defending Planned Parenthood and that they want abortions to be rare. That's the word. We want abortions to be rare. Well, Planned Parenthood tweeted out. Now, this is an actual tweet. I'm going to read from the official Planned Parenthood account. Now, this is them. Imagine life in a magical land where abortions and birth control are free and plentiful. Plentiful. That's, I believe, the opposite of the word rare.
God, thank you for all you do. Hey, Franklin, if you're listening, thank you too. Bye-bye. We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson, John Stanberry, and Franklin Chansey. Catch them again on Whoop FM at noon today and every Wednesday morning from 7:30 to 8:30. Now, back to more music on Whoop.